the Cold War began, we've been taught that it would be good for Russia to be diminished. But they've gone so far as to say Russians dying, to the tune of 300,000 casualties, they say, is just such a great thing that we need to keep this thing going. And my answer to that is, why don't you tell us the Ukrainian casualties? I have been in classified settings with CIA, the Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, not their assistants, but those people in the room. And they're bragging about how many Russians have died and been injured. And I asked them how many Ukrainians have died and been injured. And they claimed they didn't know. I mean, that's just a flat out lie. And they said they would get back to me. And they've never gotten back to me. Like, not only are Americans being fed propaganda about this war, Congress is being fed propaganda by our State Department and our Secretary of Defense and our intelligence agencies. And you can just ask a few questions in these classified hearings. If nothing else, my colleagues should be convicted of a lack of curiosity. Like, they sit there and they believe everything they're told because these are supposed to be the authorities and they know things we don't. But you can expose them with 2 or 3 questions, like how many Ukrainians have died? And they refuse to answer.
I've asked that very same question to Mike Johnson, actually, directly. But I've also asked him and a number of committee chairmen, just in personal conversations, do you believe your intel briefings? Because only a child would believe an intel briefing. Take it at face value. There may be truth in there.
Right.
Maybe largely true. But you're being spun. You're being manipulated. And if you don't know that, then you're a moron. But they seem to believe them.
They, because they have no other reference. And then here's what else happens, Tucker. When you go into a classified setting, like a SCIF, you lock up your phone, you take off your Fitbit, you take every electronic device. They even make me take off my debt badge.
What?
Yeah, I know.
Do you feel naked?
I feel exposed. I mean, I do feel naked if I'm not wearing this. I've been wearing it for a year every day of my life. Okay. But they strip you of every outside reference. Okay. And now your staff is not allowed in that meeting either. Remember, congressmen, our primary roles are like raising money, being friendly to constituents, putting on a good face, campaigning, and then, once a day or maybe twice a day, we roll in there and press the vote buttons based on what staff advises you. Well, when you go into a SCIF, you don't have your smartphone, so you're not very smart. They start using acronyms that you don't remember what the acronym stands for. You can't just okay, what's the IDGFBZ? I don't know, man. I must be stupid. But if you were in a regular setting, you just pull your phone out and oh, okay, that's what that is. I know what that is. And then you also can't ask your staff a question while you're in that setting. We have legislative staffers who handle certain specific areas.
Of course.
You can't bring them in. And then when you go back to the office, you can't tell them what you heard. So it's really quite an experience. It's a deprivation experience of any outside reference.
So it's designed to produce Stockholm Syndrome, it sounds like.
Yes. Now we've got a majority of Republicans in Congress who are saying, wait, they aren't using this money like we thought they were, and we're giving them money to fund pensions of retired politicians in Ukraine who were most certainly corrupt. And we're paying their pensions with this money.
But most Republicans don't support it. So that means that your speaker, the Republican Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, is working for the Democrats.
Yeah, it's that simple. I mean, and that's one of the reasons we went through with the motion to vacate. Paul Gosar and I co-sponsored Marjorie's motion to vacate. There were ultimately 11 of us who voted for it.
Motion to vacate would be to fire him.
To fire Speaker Johnson, just like they had done Kevin McCarthy. Although I thought inappropriately and at the wrong time and for the wrong reasons, they did that to McCarthy. But here we had Speaker Johnson, who was doing all of the things people were afraid McCarthy might do. They pre-convicted McCarthy for things they thought he would do. And here Mike Johnson came and did all these things. He put an omnibus on the floor. He passed the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, re-upped that without warrants, built the FBI a new building and gave Ukraine all this money. So what happened, what Marjorie and I and Paul decided ultimately is we needed to expose the uniparty. And never before have you had Democrats vote for a Republican speaker. And that's why we forced the question. Nancy Pelosi voted for him. Hakeem Jeffries went on national TV and said, why would we want to get rid of him? He's given us everything we want. I mean, the uniparty has never been so exposed as it was when we called that motion to vacate. I know some people got mad at us, said we shouldn't have done it, but it's a long game. We certainly hope that he doesn't become speaker next January, and hopefully people will have seen with Nancy Pelosi rushing to Speaker Johnson's aid that he's not the speaker you want when Trump wins the White House and we keep the majority.
Do you think he will be?
A lot of this depends on what the people want and if they can see it. Hopefully also Trump sees it, that Mike Johnson would be even worse than Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan while we were still in the majority, Paul Ryan sent like a dozen CRs or omnibus bills to President Trump's desk that didn't have any money for a wall in it. Like, he had no intention of ever funding a wall. Paul Ryan did. And so I think Mike Johnson is going to be similarly the same way. He's basically working for the deep state at this point in the uniparty. Everybody but me has an AIPAC person.
What does that mean, an AIPAC person?
It's like your babysitter, your AIPAC babysitter, who is always talking to you for AIPAC. They're probably a constituent in your district, but they are firmly embedded in AIPAC. And
every member has something like this?
That's how it works on the Republican side. And when they come to D.C., you go have lunch with them. And they've got your cell number, and you have conversations with them.
That's absolutely crazy.
I've had 4 members of Congress say, I'll talk to my AIPAC person. And it's literally what we call them, my AIPAC guy. I'll talk to my AIPAC guy and see if I can get him to dial those ads back.
Why have I never heard this before?
Why would they want to tell their constituents that they've basically got a buddy system with somebody who's representing a foreign country? It doesn't benefit the congressman for people to know that, so they're not going to tell you that.